Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support the channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely are appreciated, and they do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to today's second half, shall we? All right, folks, tonight's second half is, in my eyes, some of the most valuable information ever shared from three members of the academic community. These three professors took a deep dive, went down a rabbit hole, and came back out and shared a lot of valuable information and a lot of very interesting theory that only has one conclusion. These creatures are living among us, and they have been for a very long time. Quickly recapping the two news articles that addressed this subject. Harvard researchers suggest aliens may live among us underground or on the moon. June 13th, 2024, 11:59 a.m. A recent legitimization of reports of unidentified anomalous phenomenon, commonly called UAPs, and formerly referred to as UFOs, have brought more eyeballs to the possibility of extraterrestrial life. While a long-awaited government report issued earlier this year found no evidence of aliens or terrestrial intelligence, as reported by the Associated Press, two professors from Harvard University and a colleague at Montana Technological University suggest humanity may just be looking in the wrong places. Instead, reality could be something similar to science fiction movies, like in 1988's They Live, and where they wore special glasses, allowing Roddy Piper to see the aliens who disguised themselves as humans and lived in plain sight. UAP may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth, and or near environs, and or even walking among us, passing off as humans, wrote Tom Loomis and Brandon Case of Harvard's Human Flourishing Program and biological anthropology professor Michael P. Masters of MTU in a report this month. Although this idea is likely to be regarded skeptically by most scientists, such are the nature of some UAP that we argue this possibility should not be summarily dismissed, and instead deserves genuine consideration in the spirit of optimism, humility, and openness. Their writings make a case for scientific openness to a concealed earthly explanation for UAPs, argues that too often scientists and others try to put UAPs in two categories: human-made and extraterrestrial explanation, something akin to ancient alien civilizations elsewhere in the universe. While those explanations are probably more likely to be true than the lunar alien civilization, the researchers said, but that's no reason to discount them entirely. The study acknowledges skepticism within the scientific community, but calls for an open-minded consideration of their findings. Notably, the paper is waiting for peer review to validate the claims. Paper's right here. Earlier reports have surfaced regarding the alleged concealment of large unidentified flying objects by the United States government, underscoring ongoing public intrigue and debate surrounding the existence of extraterrestrial life. As scientific exploration continues, the quest for understanding whether we are alone in this universe remains a compelling and unresolved mystery. The second article, same day, June 13th, 3:25 p.m., Crypto Aliens. Harvard study, extraterrestrials from outer space are likely among humans. Synopsis. A Harvard University study suggests that alien beings termed crypto-terrestrial might live covertly among humans on Earth. These entities could exist underground, on the moon, or disguised as humans. The study explores various forms of crypto-terrestrials and calls for an open-minded consideration despite skepticism. The paper is pending peer review, continuing intrigue about extraterrestrial life. The long-standing fascination with extraterrestrial life has taken a new turn, with recent study from Harvard University suggesting the alien beings could be living covertly alongside of humans. Despite decades of scientific inquiry into the existence of alien life forms, definitive answers remain elusive. A new paper emerging from Harvard University Human Flourishing Program delves into the realm of crypto-terrestrial beings, posting that these entities often associated with unidentified aerial phenomenon UAP or UFO might be concealed underground on the moon or even integrated into human society. According to the study, these crypto-terrestrials could manifest in various forms. Here are those forms. Human crypto-terrestrials, descendants of an ancient human civilization that once thrived but now exists in a diminished state. Hominid or theropod crypto-terrestrials, non-human civilizations potentially evolved from terrestrial animals, adapt to stealth and concealment. Former extraterrestrial or extratempestrial crypto-terrestrials, beings originating from outside of Earth or from a distant future, assimilated into our environment. Magical crypto-terrestrials, entities with magical attributes akin to folklore creatures like nymphs, fairies, interacting with human world in a non-technological way. Such theories are far-fetched on their face. We entertain them here because some aspects of UAP are strange enough that they seem to call for unconventional explanations, the three stated. So, looking into this, I myself, my belief out of those four, I think that Dogman and Bigfoot more likely are the hominid or theropod crypto-terrestrial, non-human civilization potentially evolved from terrestrial animals adapted to stealth and concealment. Some may argue and say the magical crypto-terrestrials, entities with magical attributes akin to folklore creatures like fairies and nymphs, interacting with the human world in a non-technological way, could be, but I just don't believe that these creatures are magical. I don't. I believe that they are capable of travel through portals from dimension A to dimension B or dimension 1 to dimension 2, whichever you want to list it. And they have that kind of whatever humanity had long ago before we lost it, thousands of years ago, to where we could feel what was going to happen. I do believe that, the people who are mediums, I do believe that we all had that. I also believe that even though science says we do use more than 10% of our brain, I do believe that, but I don't believe that we are even close to using 100%. And if we were capable of that, I think we could be able to do so much more, like open portals, think beyond the scope. And there's very few humans that are on this planet that can still do that, or not even to a percentage number high, but just 1 or 2% higher than the smartest, Anyway, here is that paper. The Crypto-Terrestrial Hypothesis, a case for scientific openness to a concealment earthly explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomenon. So, anomalous, we're not even talking about UFO or UAP. UAP is aerial phenomenon. We are now talking anomalous, meaning alien, anomalies, Bigfoot, fairies, nymphs, Dogman, crawler. Things that we can't explain, but things that we talk about all the time on these channels, on my channel and others that you guys listen to. So, note, this paper is a speculative thought piece that reflects the author's own interests and ideas and is not associated with the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard. We would also like to emphasize that we believe this hypothesis to be in all likelihood false, but nevertheless believe it still merits scientific investigation. They have to put that in there. In recent years, have seen increasing public attention and indeed concern regarding unidentified anomalous phenomenon. Hypotheses for such phenomenon tend to fall into two classes: conventional terrestrial explanation, human-made technology, or an extraterrestrial explanation, advanced civilization from elsewhere in the cosmos. However, there's also a third minority class of this hypothesis, an unconventional terrestrial explanation outside the prevailing consensus view of the universe. This is an ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, which includes as a subset crypto-terrestrial hypothesis, namely the notion that UAP may reflect activities of intelligent beings concealed in stealth here on Earth, underground, and or is near environs, the moon, and walking among us, passing off as humans. Although this idea is likely regarded with skepticism by most scientists, such is nature of some UAP that we argue this possibility should not be dismissed and instead deserves genuine consideration in the spirit of humility, openness, keywords, philosophy, science, extraterrestrial, ultra-terrestrial. Received March 12th, 2024. Accepted April 22nd, 2024. Published October of 2024. It's not even October yet. Here we go. There's a lot. This paper explores a hypothesis concerning unidentified anomalous phenomenon and follows another by the same first author focusing on a related hypothesis recently published in the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, Loomis, in 2023. Essentially, the disclosure around UAP is dominated by two main classes of explanation: a conventional terrestrial origin, human technology, or an extraterrestrial origin, advanced civilizations arriving from somewhere else. However, such is the strange nature of many UAP that observers close to the topic have been compelled to consider a more unconventional set of theories known collectively as the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. This donates a broad category of conjecture centered around the possibility that UAP may involve forms of non-human intelligence, or NHI, that are already present in Earth's environment in some sense, which Puthoff in 2022 describes as a sequestered terrestrial culture. Existing papers have suggested UAP may evolve beings from dimensions that coexist alongside the four dimensions of space-time we usually perceive, and or the UAP occupants are extra-tempestrial, traveling through the fourth dimension to visit different periods of the Earth's history, which may involve our descendants returning to study their own hominin evolutionary pasts. Masters 2019-2022. In writing that paper, though, the author became increasingly aware of the depth of evidence and theory that also tentatively supports another ultra-terrestrial explanation, the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. Our focus here, which holds that UAP may reflect activities of NIH concealed here on Earth, underground, and its environs. Indeed, the philosopher Bernardo Kastrup in 2024 recently argued that a version of the CTH was, despite in seemingly outlandish, unlikely, and far-out nature, the most reasonable scenario for UAP and NHI. As such, a paper which explored the CTH in depth seemed a logical next step, and furthermore a useful counterpart to the interdimensional paper. Fundamentally, UAP constitutes an extraordinary imperialistic mystery, which science is surely obliged to investigate, yet has rarely done so, at least in the open, public, visible way. They just don't want us to know that they're looking at this. Especially when it comes to the more unconventional ultra-terrestrial hypothesis. As such, together, the previous and current paper will hopefully serve as valuable pieces of this emergent jigsaw puzzle that is humanity's attempt to better understand this existentially important yet hitherto all too often overlooked phenomenon. The paper begins by briefly noting the recent history and concern over this topic. However, this subject has been extensively covered elsewhere, including by Loomis in 2023. Those papers offer a relatively recent summary of the relevant terrain, so we will merely point to such sources. Rather than delving into detail, then we can explore the CTH over 5 sections, reflecting on limits to historical and geological knowledge, traces of lost civilizations, traces of underground civilizations, traditions around magical crypto-terrestrials, and UAP-related activity underground, underwater, and nearby, i.e. the moon. We conclude by noting that across these various considerations are actually the 4 distinct CTH It's amazing. CTH, whose merits were briefly considered. We recognize the CTH may rightly be regarded spectacularly by most scientists, but argue that nevertheless should not be ruled out and deserve consideration in the spirit of optimism, humility, and openness. Now, this writing is absolutely huge. It's just a stack of papers. This is it. I bookmarked some of what I feel to be notable and informative pieces. Within the broad ultra-terrestrial category, one theory, or collection of theories, if differentiated in a full-grained way, is the interdimensional hypothesis, of which this suggests UAP may involve beings from dimensions that coexist alongside the four dimensions of space-time humans usually perceive. Indeed, following the brief on Grush that members of Congress received from the ICIG, January 12th, Representative Luna said, "I think it's important to listen to scientific words that Grush uses. Grush never said extraterrestrial or alien. He said interdimensional." On the same theme, Ron James, director of media relations for UFO research group MUFON, claims he has been informed by intelligence insiders of a very large contingent of biblically minded people within the Pentagon who have sought to shut down investigations into UAP based on a fear that these may actually involve demons coming from hell. Another hypothesis, which could, depending on how it is construed, be regarded as ultra-terrestrials time travelers, which is now being given serious consideration, most notably by Masters, who calls this extra-tempestrial explanation. One might also note that time-traveling NHIs, or future humans, could also be an aspect of a crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. The crypto-terrestrial hypothesis. In essence, as per all ultra-terrestrial hypotheses, the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis suggests the NHI responsible for the UAP may already be present in Earth's environment in some sense. So when we say UAP, don't think UFO. From right now in this article, do not think, or not article, thesis, writing, don't think UFO. Think anomalous. An anomalous creature, whatever, glitch, just think anomalies, okay? Sorry. However, rather than existing in other dimensions or other times, they are present in a relatively more conventional sense within current standard space-time dimensions, but are nevertheless hidden in some way, living underground. As with other ultra-terrestrial hypotheses, we should state outright that we consider this unlikely. Crucially, though, we do not regard it as impossible. Indeed, emerging observations seem to suggest it may well have some validity. It also could help assign some probability weightings. For instance, before the past few years, we personally would have rated the possibility of crypto-terrestrial hypothesis having some basis in truth, as low as 1%. Now, in light of recent data, we put it around 10%. This still, of course, means we view CHT as 9 times more unlikely than likely. From other direction, though, we consider it 10 times more likely than we did before, with our priors having significantly shifted. Thus, not only should the CHT not be ruled out, we argue, it should be explicitly given due consideration. The rationale is similar to Nolan's remark, leaving open the idea that it's some form of consciousness that is non-material. Even if the CH or CTH also sounds crazy, people are seemingly becoming compelled to take it serious. Indeed, going further, we concur with Puthoff that the CTH should be actively investigated rather than passively and reactively waiting for relevant data to make itself apparent. It would behoove us to set aside our tentativeness about any given hypothesis, place it on the table as almost certain true, and go for it, doing so by elements of more forensic gumshoe style as a criminalistic and intelligent work. The general point is that if another intelligent species had inhabited Earth or Mars long before Homo sapiens, it is possible that we could have no idea. Of course, for these considerations to be relevant, the CTH, such species, would need to still be present here on Earth and existing in stealth. Whether a branch of Homo sapiens, a different hominid subspecies, and even earlier precursor, or something else entirely. As we discussed below, while this notion may sound unlikely on first hearing it, many observers are persuaded that it is at least conceivable, not least because whole swaths of our planet remain virtually unexplored and uncharted. This, of course, includes vast regions underwater, but even includes areas above ground. There has been recent speculation, for instance, about the Alaskan Triangle, a sparsely populated area between Anchorage and Juneau. In the south, on the northern coast, is a prominent hotspot for anomalous activity, as well as other oddities, such as 20,000 unexplained disappearances in the area since the 70s. So usually, when we think about Dulce, which they mentioned Dulce in this frickin' paper, it's so amazing. We think, okay, where did these people, did they go up in a spaceship? No, they were brought somewhere because the deal that was made with the humans, the people that control, and the Dracos to go to a deep underground military base or a deep underground base or layer for experimentation, genetic manipulation, and mutilation. But 20,000 people? What is it? That movie, The Fifth? God, hang on. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. They discuss that briefly in that movie, but I mean, since 1970, 50 years, 20,000 people, that's 4,000 people a year. Moreover, our humility ought to extend to biology as well, as argued by Davies in a paper on potential for Earth to host a shadow biosphere involving forms of weird life whose biochemistry is not so standard that it would not be detected by life detection tools targeting the standard terrain biochemistry. This kind of idea has sometimes been known as paraphysical hypothesis, which initially denotes forms of life that are physical but are usually undetected and unknown to us. Here one might note that although Davies were generally referring to shadow biome on molecular level, there is recent speculation with regard to larger life forms. A paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science, for instance, estimated roughly 20% of living mammal species remain undescribed. 20%. So still, right now, there is 20% of mammals on this earth that we have not discovered or don't have a name for. That, my friends, when that happens, that's cryptozoology. And so right here, species remain undescribed, with a bulk of that preceded hidden diversity likely found among rodents, bats, two families with strong preferences for subterranean dens and nesting sites. Among the most notorious candidates for hidden mammalian diversity is the Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, the large hairy primate, purportedly to inhabit forests in North America, with similar legends of comparable figures also found in other countries and ours. Dogman, they don't necessarily say Dogman, but other species that are comparable to Bigfoot. Indeed, this was mentioned in relation to the Alaskan Triangle, in which cryptozoologist Cliff Brackman is reported in saying anything of any size could be hiding in the wilderness. With so much fantastic habitat and so few people to compete with Sasquatch and other things basically have the run. While disregarding skeptics as mythical, the likelihood of the existence has been attested to by no means a figure Jane Goodall, who's the world's foremost primatologist. Indeed, Bindernagel and Meldrum argue the dismissals of the possibilities has more to do with unawareness of the evidence exactly as North American mammal than the absence of such evidence, with such evidence actually being quite solid and genuine, and that reasons for resistance is topic challenges prevailing knowledge. Even more relevant here, some UAP cases involve apparent NHIs that resemble such creatures. In Brazil, a farmer reported encountering a craft that had crashed on his property, out of which two animals appeared, one of which was the stereotypical gray, but the other looked like was hairy like a sloth, that said there was no other reason to be skeptical about the potential existence of other creatures. For instance, one often overlooked counter-argument regarding the existence of self-sustaining population of Sasquatch is that nearly all primate species are intelligent, social, and curious. Because this mythical creature is classified as a member of the primate order of mammals and considered its bipedal form and locomotion would be a member of the hominid clade specifically, which is the most intelligent and curious of all primates. One would expect to see Sasquatch frequently peering into villages and rummaging through trash cans. However, such instances are rarely, if ever, reported. On the other hand, although it is also possible that squatches could be anomalously solitary, form of primate, hence their general elusiveness. So, a sloth, he didn't say it was a sloth, it was a sloth-like creature, which, to me, a sloth has a muzzle. A sloth has large claws. You know, like if I'm a Brazilian farmer, and not downing a Brazilian farmer in any way, but how many books has he read? How much activity with the outer world has he had? You know what I mean? So he's probably not had a computer in his home. You know, he probably doesn't have a TV. They probably make clothing out of wool still. There are villages out there. There's a goddarn village that was just attacked recently by a large canine-like creature that tore up and killed other villagers in Brazil. So if he's to see this thing and he sees these claws and a muzzle and it's hairy, he's going to think that resembles a sloth. There is a long history of tales and potentially even suggestive evidence of skeletal remains and other traces of species of humanoid giants. Here again, there are a probability good reason for skepticism, though as with other aspects of this topic, we would not simply want to dismiss such ideas out of hand. So they're not addressing us. People who believe, people who know. I don't even like the word believe. We know these creatures exist. We've seen them. The majority of us that listen to channels like this and research stuff like this have seen evidence of these creatures' existence. So they're not referring to us with this healthy skepticism. They are referring to the people that, you know, are at the water cooler talking about The Bachelor instead of really what is going on with these crazy biblical world-changing events that are happening right in front of us. And I'm not talking about just the wars. I mean, we are seeing things that shouldn't be on this planet right now, and there's a reason for it. And you know what I'm talking about. Of particular relevance, here are claims of intelligent cryptozoological species thriving underground across cultures, or legends, for instance, of anthropomorphic reptilian races, such as the Nagas. We just talked about these. A semi-divine species of half-human, half-serpent beings thought to reside in the netherworld, or Patala, in Hinduism and Buddhism. Moreover, paleontologists have even speculated that such creatures could possibly have evolved from known zoological origins, analyzed by the morphological trends among dinosaurs towards large brains and upright postures in relation to species called Truden and suggests that they have survived mass extinction. It would likely have evolved into an upright reptilian figure dubbed as the dinosauroid. We've talked about this. I mean, this paper is fucking amazing because I have literally talked about this stuff on this channel within the last couple of months. And here is a validation, my friends. Crucially, some people argue it could be actually have survived the extinction and continually developed by retreating below the ground, though it is unclear how viable this theory is. Even so, it is intriguing that reptilians have long been associated with the UAP topic, with speculation that some species does indeed represent an NHI that may be responsible for some UAP. The evidence is just crazy. I mean, it gets deeper and deeper, and we are going deeper, my friends. We need to. Right now. Moreover, some UAP reports, once again, not UFO, not unidentified aerial phenomenon, but unidentified anomalous phenomenon, reports, while not explicitly connected to traditional concerning fairies, bear striking resemblance to aspects of those traditions. Indeed, this is the central theme of Vallee's classic Passport to Magonia on UFO folklore and parallel worlds. Some of the encounters described above, for instance, abductions near Mount Shasta, already rhyme in the significant ways with fairy lore. Another intriguing example of this is the airship sightings in 1896 to 97 that captivated attention in the United States. I did a video on that, actually, when 1896 and 97, there were UFOs spotted. We weren't even capable of flying how these things were at that point. As charted in Vallee, involved aeronauts interacting with witnesses in ways that's of strange dreamlike qualities. One prominent rumor centers on a military mission in 1946, 1947, known as Operation High Jump, led by Rear Admiral Richard Byrd, to establish an Antarctic research base. The trip itself is well documented. Made a video on that. Great video. However, there has been long, strange rumors regarding the mission, both in terms of real purpose and actual outcome, including a claim that Byrd himself was pulled through some kind of vortex while flying and encountered a fantastical city inside the Earth inhabited by an advanced race of beings. There's that part, and then there's the idea that he crossed over this shelf and found this beautiful green land that was the size of the United States. So this is unbelievable. I mean, I'm blown away. In terms of potential underground NHI bases or enclaves, numerous locations have been alleged. One is in Antarctica, as noted in the previous section. Another is the base Dulce, that some people believe exists under the Archuleta Mesa near Dulce, New Mexico. As with many aspects of this topic, the allegations are suffused with confusion and mystery. Claims of an NHI base there are thought to have been arisen from Albuquerque businessman Paul Benowitz, though it transpires he had been fed disinformation by UFOologist Bill Moore and an Air Force intelligence operative, Richard Doty, possibly to distract him from genuine U.S. military bases in the area. However, the rumor has persisted, particularly because Phil Schneider, a great American hero, who claimed publicly before his untimely death in 96, they claim it was he offed himself, but we know he didn't. and they say it in this article too, that he offed himself. So that he had been employed there as an engineer, and that it is in fact jointly operated by the United States military and the NHI species, with the latter having long been the original occupants of the mesa, and who were more recently encountered when the military were constructing the base. It goes without saying that these claims have not been substantiated. Bullshit. Nevertheless, some people close to the UAP topic think it should be considered 100%. Now, remember that NHI stands for non-human intelligence, okay? This paper has made the case for taking seriously the crypto-terrestrial hypothesis as a potential explanation for unidentified anomalous phenomenon, while noting that it probably ranks lower than other hypotheses, such as the extraterrestrial explanation, although such calculations are hard to quantify. To be precise, the material above actually contains 4 different crypto-terrestrial hypotheses. All would involve entities existing in stealth during recent human history, and possibly even before the emergence of Homo sapiens in some cases, such as crypto-terrestrial hypothesis 2, number 2, but differ in nature of the beings in question. Dogman Bigfoot. different than what the reptilians are being talked about. So, number 1, CTHI, human crypto-terrestrials, a technologically advanced ancient human civilization that was largely destroyed long ago by the flood, but continued to exist in remnant form. CTH2, hominid or theropod crypto-terrestrials, a technologically advanced non-human civilization consisting of some terrestrial animal which evolved to live in stealth underground, perhaps a hominid or alternate species much more distantly related to us, descendants of unknown intelligent dinosaurs. CTH3, former extraterrestrial or extraterrestrial crypto-terrestrials, extraterrestrial aliens, or are intemporal descendants who arrived on Earth from elsewhere in the cosmos or from the human future, respectively, and concealed themselves in stealth. And the 4th, CTH4, magical crypto-terrestrials, entities which are less likely human-grown aliens and more like earthbound angels relating to the world inhabited by humans in ways that at least our perspective are less technologically than magical, who are known in Europe language as names like fairy, elves, and nymphs. We might note that in a detailed taxonomy of UAP hypothesis, also offered the 4th CTH ancient proto-human survival, breakaway civilizations, cryptids, hominids, stranded in quotation gods, although they share that in common with the CTH2, hominid and theropod crypto-terrestrials. So when they say quote unquote gods trapped here on Earth, they mean like when the aliens landed in front of like the ancient Egyptians, and they were perceived as gods, trapped here. That's Neil deGrasse's view, which they included in here, which is super cool. Then there's a bunch of reference points, and then this is the end of the article, and there's some really interesting stuff going on here. So I marked some things that I wanted to share with you. Former CIA officer Jim Semivan, for example, said, "There's an entity out there. There's some kind of non-human intelligence that's living with us on this fucking planet." Indeed, John Ramirez, who served at the CIA Directorate of Science and Technology, Intelligence, and ODNI, National Counter-Proliferation Center, between 1984 and 2009, suggests these ultra-terrestrials, NHI, non-human intelligence, could even be walking among us unrecognized as members of modern human society, even if, according to his speculation, they actually have reptilian origins. As discussed in a main text, to the point retired Army Sergeant Cliff Stone, who claims to have worked as part of an elite military unit from 68 to 90, tasked in recovering UAPs, then we'll call them UFO, has claimed that authorities are aware of 57 different non-human intelligent species, many of whom look much like you or I and could walk among us and you wouldn't even know the difference. That's from a CIA agent, former CIA agent, and former Army sergeant. Just adding this for shits and giggles for all the people that have been on the live stream, and I mentioned this and how much I disliked this person. They talk about it in this on Joe Rogan podcast between Graham Hancock and Flint Dribble, or Dibble. They argued about the Ancient Apocalypse TV show, etc. I just find it funny that they mentioned Dribble, Dr. Flint Dibble, but he is a neckbeard, my friends. I found it funny that it's mentioned in this article, and I wanted to share it with you guys who, if you've been to the live stream on Saturday, you will know what I mean, and you'll probably be laughing right now. So let's get into the other very interesting things that I want to share with you. We are coming to a conclusion on this. Many cultures have legends of races of giants that were once supposed to have roamed the earth, with such myths reflecting in places names associated with these beings like Giant Causeway in Ireland, the Tower of Bones in India, thought to contain remains of these giant warriors, which include giants of the epic Battle of Mahabharata, perhaps the most interesting. This notion of giants is that people claim to have actually found evidence of such. Some consists of apparent fossilized traces of huge humanoid beings, such as giant footprint being 1.2 meters long in granite in South America. Another source of intrigue are forms of architecture that seem too large to have been designed for humans, such as recently unearthed and previously unknown biblical era layer of the Palestine city of Gath in Israel, which dates to the 11th century BCE, when, especially pertinently, according to Samuel 1:17, the future King David slew the giant Goliath. Finally, there have long been reports of large skeletons with over 1,000 accounts of 7-foot or taller skeletons found in ancient burial sites over a 200-year period of time in North America alone. So just within North America, there's been 1,000 different accounts in 200 years. They mention the hugely popular book Chariots of the Gods and Unsolved Mysteries of the Past. If you've never read those books, I highly recommend those two books. They are an amazing, amazing books, Chariots of the Gods and Unsolved Mysteries of the Past, by Eric von Denkens. There's a connection to Mount Shasta in Lemura, who's apparently by Frederick Spencer Oliver, who presented himself. His book made claims of a tunnel to a secret city inside of Shasta, Mount Shasta, which hosted a mystical brotherhood of escapees from Lemura. Similar to Beckley, includes a narrative given by a woman who is the princess Sharula from Telos, a subterranean city, which I've talked about. She and the others, Phil Schneider actually discusses her. She is with she's on humanity's side. These evil reptilians, the Dracos. Other texts offer further details about the realm. Its supposed inhabitants serve, 1931, row of odd-looking persons who were tall, graceful, and agile, with large heads, much larger foreheads, who would visit local towns and trade nuggets and gold dust for modern commodities. The Lemurians is who he is talking about right there. I have never heard of this, and I found it interesting, and I deep dove. Actually, after I get done narrating all this and putting this video together, I'm going deep diving on this subject because it interests me quite a lot, actually. Kirk describes subject as subterranean and, for the most part, invisible people, and notes that fairies are said to be of a middle nature betwixt man and angel, both as their constitution being framed of intelligent, studious spirits, and light-changeable bodies like those called astral, somewhat of the nature of a condensed cloud, and as to their lifespan, they live much longer than we, yet die at last, or at least vanish from that state, while their bodies of congealed air are sometimes carried aloft. Kirk notes their ordinary dwellings were thought to be subterranean, the earth being full of cavities and cells, and there being no such things as pure wilderness in the whole universe. Kirk describes reports of women yet alive who tell that they were taken away when in childbed to nurse fairy children and brought down into an underground city illuminated by a continual lamp and fire, often seen without fuel to sustain them. He also emphasizes, however, most people are completely incapable of seeing fairy folk. This required some kind of mysterious second sight, an endowment which seems to be place-specific, with some seers reporting that several did see the second sight when in the Highlands or
the Isles. Yet, when transported to live in other countries, especially in Americas, they lose this quality. Interesting. I'm going deep diving on that, my friends. Many of the rumors surrounding Operation High Jump stem from the missing diary, which surfaced in the 70s, allegedly written by Byrd during the operation, subtitled A Secret Expedition and Journey to a Paradise Inside the Earth. In this, he claimed to have been pulled through a vortex while flying over an unknown mountain range, whereupon he entered inner Earth and encountered a fantastical city inhabited by humanoid creatures. Seemingly summoned as representative of humanity, he was reprimanded by a figure called the Master above the invention of the atomic bomb and warned of a dark age is to come if humans do not mend their ways. According to the documents leaked in 91, things take a strange turn. Just 2 days after arriving, bright lights were seen on the horizon. Sailors thought it was another ship, but they were below the Antarctic Circle in uncharted waters. The lights then ascended to a 45-degree angle into the sky very quickly. They tried to make radar contact, but they were out of range. 3 hours later, 5 more lights appeared in the sky and began flying directly toward the ship. Anti-aircraft guns and 20-millimeter cannons were fired but had no effect. A radio operator stationed on the USS Brownson gave testimony of how strange craft suddenly appeared from the ocean. This is corroboration by Lieutenant John Sayerson, who says the object shot vertically out of the water at a tremendous speed. One object flew between the masts of his ship with such force the radio antenna went back and forth from the turbulence. An aircraft from the USS Currituck took to the sky but was immediately struck by a beam of energy and destroyed. About 10 miles away, the torpedo ship USS Maddox burst into flames and began sinking. According to the report, this was the first attack of several that would occur over the next few weeks. February 26 would be the last engagement with unknown craft. A Navy task force ordered retreat and left the area a full 6 months before the mission was supposed to end. The last bit of this, Phil Schneider gave the following account of his alleged experience at Dulce Base at a public event in 1995. I am Phil Schneider. I spent 17 years in black budget programs as a government geologist, engineer, and structural engineer with the aerospace applications. And I am a self-taught metallurgist. In working with black projects, I was involved in something very controversial, almost totally unbelievable to most of you. I was involved in building another base inside of Dulce, New Mexico, which is Los Alamos' laboratory. One, the southwest part of the Archuleta Mesa. We were in the process of the early stages of the building the 4 large tunnel-like holes. Some of them ran 2.5 miles under the surface. Anyway, after we drilled all 4, it took about 2 days to drill them. When you build an underground base, you drill 4 basic holes, then you build, called stoves or cross-member holes across, and then you use blasting equipment, and you blast out or tunnel out, deflagrant or melt rock out. The equipment kept coming up broken. So we wanted to go down and see what was going on. We sent someone down, a human observer, or human observers in this case, to find out what was going on. When I saw Green Beret and Black Beret people, I knew something was up. The gig was up. In this process, I was lowered down in a basket in one of these holes, and there was sitting a 7-foot-tall alien gray. The stench was worse than the worst garbage you can imagine. I didn't waste any time. I reached for my pistol. I carried a little Walther PPK with a 9-shot magazine. When you are in an almost spacesuit environment and you reach for your gun, it is not the easiest thing to do, and then to pop the magazine into it and start shooting. Man, I killed 2 of them. Yeah, they are mortal. They die. However, in this process, one of them did this. All I remember is that he just kind of waved his hand in front of his chest, and the next thing I knew, this blue beam hit me and just literally opened me up like a fish. It was some form of electrical force because it was kind of like being hit with a lightning bolt. Burned all my toenails off. A Green Beret that was right behind me. He risked his life. He shoved me back into the basket and hit the button that took me up. I would not be alive talking to you now if it was not for him. I am forever indebted. He lost his life. 66 Secret Service agents, Green Beret, Black Beret, crack troops, lost their lives because the government, our United States government, lied, didn't tell us anything about the alien threat. There is a war underneath there, and I am talking dead serious. So, if I were to read that whole thing, it would have been hours. What I shared with you from that paper, to me, is validation that, 1, these creatures exist. 2, our government is well aware of it. 3, there is some sort of alien, whether it be extraterrestrial or just terrestrial, coming from a dimension. There is that connection. And I'm going to end this upload with this. Because I really believe that, and I have for 2 years now, that this connection is deeper than we know. Andrew Dawson saw something in Canada, filmed it. And there are people speculate that it didn't happen, whatever. I think it happened. He's dead. He's gone. He was threatened. Ironically enough, that base, and I made a video about this, that base that he pointed at in Canada, which people are like, oh, it's an abandoned weather station. Ironically, it looks identical to the base that sits atop of the Archuleta Mesa above Dulce's underground military base. Jonathan Axelrod and his family are the poster children for the eruption of anomalies in their home following trips to Skinwalker Ranch. For more than a dozen years following his July 2009 and subsequent trips to the ranch, Axelrod's wife and then teenage children were subjected to nightmarish dogmen appearing in their backyard, to blue, red, yellow, and white orbs routinely floating through their home and in their yard, to black shadow people standing over their beds when they awoke, and to a relentless barrage of loud, unexplained footsteps walking up and down the stairs in their home. What was once a normal, middle-class home in suburban Virginia became an inferno of bizarre, unexplained phenomena. And Axelrod and his family were certain that the trigger for this transformation was his first trip to Skinwalker Ranch after doing a deep dive on the USS Nimitz Tic Tac. It is indeed lucky that Axelrod's family was and is extremely stable, psychologically well-adjusted and grounded, and prone to matter-of-fact reactions to these events. Beginning in the summer of 2009, BAA-SS team comprised of 6 investigators, 3 scientists, and 2 technicians alternated 1 to 2 week missions to interview area residents as well as deploy sensor instrumentation at Skinwalker Ranch. By March of 2010, approximately 30 residents who had reported first-hand accounts were interviewed in their homes. The group comprised of lifelong residents of the area, all living with 1 to 2 mile radius of Skinwalker Ranch. They include 4 police officers, 11 Ute tribesmen, including a shaman, 12 ranchers, 6 business owners, and the director of the local Fish and Wildlife, half the members of the Church of Jesus Christ and Latter-day Saints. 11 of these individuals recounted first-hand encounters with dog or wolf-like creatures that could run at a speed on 2 legs, sometimes in conjunction with orb-like activity. Its estimated height was 6 to 7 feet. Many of these people reported observation took place during the daytime. Some sightings were very recent, only a month or 2 old, while others had taken place years ago. All observations had occurred within a 5-mile radius of Skinwalker Ranch.
All right, folks, right there is, just in my eyes, some undeniable evidence that backs the people like myself who have had experiences with the paranormal, with cryptids, and it is not just by a regular Joe like myself, but we are talking about 3 major academic community members. How can you debate that? You cannot. And then also to what happened after the Nimitz investigation. These are just undeniable evidence, undeniable puzzle pieces that fit in pretty much everybody's puzzle, unless you are including fictitious experiences in your puzzle. But if you are really looking in and have theories based on reality of what these creatures are and where they come from and what they've done, then this fits. I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that keeps this channel growing and going, and honestly what gives people a chance and a place to share their experiences and theories judgment-free, just simply treated with the respect that we all deserve. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless.